The chandeliers in the Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom sparkled like 1,000 judgmental eyes. I lifted my champagne flute, the bubbles rising just as fast as my confidence. Celine clung to my arm, her crimson dress a deliberate choice, a silent promise of the night's fireworks. "You're the talk of the evening, Damien," she whispered, pressing close. Her perfume was intoxicating, a heady mix of vanilla and smoke. "Good," I murmured, my gaze sweeping across the room. Investors, politicians, celebrities, every one of them hungry for a piece of my fortune. I owned this room, and everyone in it knew it. "Smile," she said, brushing her lips against my cheek as the cameras flashed. I turned slightly, my grin sharp and practiced. A waiter passed with a tray of glasses. I grabbed one, raising it toward a group of board members. "Gentlemen to success," I toasted, my voice smooth as silk. Their laughter followed me as I moved, Celine's arm wrapped possessively around mine. That was the plan. Show them the power I wielded, the luxury I lived in. Show them the woman on my arm, the empire at my feet. "Damien?" Celine purred, her hand tracing my sleeve. "They're staring at us." "Let them," I replied, my voice low. "Tonight I'm king. If this story resonated with you, hit like, spread the word and tell us where you're watching from." But then, like a cold wind in a summer garden, the room shifted. A hush fell, a collective breath held. I turned, frowning, following their gaze. And there she was, Marissa, my wife. Her black dress hugged her swollen belly, each step confident, unhurried. Her eyes found mine, calm and unreadable. And beside her, Ethan Cade, the CEO I'd crushed in a merger 2 years ago. He stood tall, his suit impeccable, his hand resting protectively on her lower back. My chest constricted. Celine's fingers dug into my arm. "Who the hell is that?" she hissed, but I couldn't answer. Marissa's gaze never wavered. She didn't flinch, didn't smile. The cameras swung toward her, like vultures scenting blood. Flashes lit her face in quick succession, capturing every inch of her composure. My mind raced. How did she know him? Why was he with her? I felt the room tilt, my grip on Celine tightening. Ethan met my gaze, his expression cold and steady. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Marissa stopped a few feet away. She placed a hand on her belly, her chin high. "Evening, Damien," she said, her voice calm and unwavering. Her presence shattered the illusion I'd built around myself. Every laugh, every cheer, every glance, the power I'd held for so long, slipped through my fingers. I tried to swallow, but my throat was dry. Celine's nails bit into my skin. "Damien?" But I couldn't answer, because in that moment I wasn't the king of this room anymore. I was just a man, outplayed, outmaneuvered, and left standing alone in the wreckage of my own arrogance. The air around me felt suddenly thin, as if the walls themselves were closing in. My hand clenched around the stem of my glass, my knuckles white. Across the sea of staring faces and gossiping mouths, her eyes locked with mine. Marissa. Her expression was unreadable, a mask of calm I'd never seen on her before. She stood tall, one hand resting on the curve of her belly, a belly I hadn't even known existed until tonight. 100 questions crashed through my mind, but the one that stuck sharp as a knife was, why had she kept this from me? And then there was him, Ethan Cade. He stood just behind her, a fraction to her left, close enough to be protective, but distant enough to pretend it was business. His posture was relaxed, but there was a sharpness to his eyes that made my skin crawl. Who the hell did he think he was? I shifted my gaze between the two of them. Marissa's lips curled slightly, but it wasn't a smile. It was a challenge, a silent dare to make the first move. "Damien?" Celine's voice snapped at my side, but it felt like a distant echo. Couldn't look away from Marissa. Her eyes held a depth I'd never noticed before, strong, determined, and utterly composed. She looked like a woman who'd found her own strength, no longer willing to bend to my whims. My throat went dry. Ethan's hand brushed lightly against the small of her back, a gesture so subtle that most people would miss it. But not me. My jaw clenched. Marissa's gaze never faltered. "You look different," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. She raised an eyebrow, her eyes glinting under the chandelier's light. "Do I?" she asked, her tone even, unbothered. I opened my mouth to reply, but the words caught in my throat. Ethan's eyes met mine, calm and unflinching. "She's stronger than you remember," he said quietly, his voice low enough that only I could hear. I felt the blood drain from my face. Marissa shifted her hand on her belly, a protective gesture that made my chest tighten. Who was this woman standing before me? The whispers in the crowd rose like a tide, the weight of their curiosity pressing on my shoulders. Damien Blackwell, the man with everything, suddenly felt like he had nothing at all. I glanced at Celine, who looked confused, her eyes darting between Marissa and me. My mind raced. Why was she here, and what did she want from me? The laughter behind me stung like a slap. "Look at them," Celine murmured, her voice a purr of poison. Her fingers trailed down my arm, a deliberate display of ownership. "Your sweet little wife playing hero with the CEO? She thinks she's got you beat." My jaw clenched. I wanted to rip that smirk off her face, but I needed her. For now. Celine leaned in closer, her breath hot against my ear. "Don't let her make you look weak. Show her who you really are." I turned my gaze to Marissa. She stood just beyond the dance floor, her hand still resting on her stomach, that same calm stare fixed on me. Ethan Cade remained by her side, his posture casual yet unyielding, like he'd been rehearsing for this moment his whole life. Celine's fingers squeezed my wrist. "You're Damien Blackwell," she hissed, a wicked smile playing on her lips. "Remind her." I pulled away, my anger boiling beneath the surface. As I stepped forward, Ethan's eyes met mine, cool, assessing. "Damien," he said, his voice smooth, just loud enough for me to hear. "This isn't the time or the place." My teeth ground together. "You don't get to tell me when to talk to my wife," I spat, my voice low, dangerous. Marissa's gaze flickered to Ethan, then back to me. "I'm not your wife tonight," she said quietly, her voice steady. "Tonight, I'm just a woman." "You hurt." The words sliced through me, leaving only raw, exposed nerves. Ethan's presence loomed beside her, his calm authority making my chest tighten with resentment. He didn't have to say anything more. His stance alone told me everything. He was her shield now. Celine's laughter faded, her hand dropping from my arm as she realized the game had changed. I tried to step around Ethan, but he moved subtly, blocking my path with infuriating grace. "I'd think twice before making a scene," he warned, his tone low and even. I glared at him, my fists clenched. "Who the hell do you think you are?" He met my gaze without flinching. "The man making sure she's safe." The words hit me harder than any punch. Marissa's eyes, once so trusting, now held only quiet defiance. Celine shifted beside me, uncomfortable now, her earlier confidence deflating like a punctured balloon. "Damien," Marissa said, her voice calm but strong. "This isn't about you anymore, it's about what's right." The room spun, the weight of every choice I'd made pressing down on me. And in that moment I realized I wasn't the king of this room anymore. I was the one on trial. The night air was sharp, biting against my skin as I stepped onto the balcony. I leaned against the railing, my mind a tangle of confusion and rage. The city stretched below me, lights glittering like the promises I'd made, and broken. I tried to steady my breathing, but every time I closed my eyes, Marissa's face stared back at me, calm, unshaken. A shadow moved behind me. I turned to see Ethan Cade step through the open door, his silhouette sharp against the glow of the ballroom. He shut the door with a soft click, his hands in his pockets. "You look rattled, Damien," he said, his tone almost casual. I glared at him. "This doesn't concern you." Ethan tilted his head, his eyes dark. "Doesn't it?" My heart thudded. "Stay out of my marriage." He gave a humorless laugh. Marriage? Is that what you call what you had with Marissa? Had? I snapped, my voice tight. She's still my wife. Ethan stepped closer, his face inches from mine. Is she? He asked, his voice soft, but deadly. I clenched my fists. What are you playing at? He pulled a folded document from his pocket, holding it out to me. Your offshore accounts, he said. Shady deals, tax fraud, money you siphoned from partners who trusted you. I felt the blood drain from my face. Where did you... Marissa, he said, his tone even. She told me everything. I grabbed the paper, my hands trembling. You're bluffing, I growled. Ethan's eyes met mine without a flicker. Am I? She's tired of your lies. She's tired of hiding. And so am I. I wanted to punch him to wipe that calm expression from his face, but I couldn't, because deep down I knew he was right. You think you can take her from me? I spat, my voice trembling. Ethan's expression hardened. No, I think she took herself from you. You just never noticed. A silence fell between us, heavy with the truth I'd been running from. He turned to leave, pausing in the doorway. The game's over, Damien, he said, and you lost. As the door clicked shut behind him, I stood there, the city lights blurring through the tears I refused to shed. Marissa had shared more than I'd ever thought she would, and in that moment, I realized my secrets weren't mine anymore. I never expected to find that letter in my purse. I'd been sorting through old receipts, searching for the prenatal vitamins I'd bought that morning, when my fingers brushed against the crisp envelope. My name was written on it in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. My hand shook as I pulled it out. A single sheet of paper, folded once, stared back at me. I took a deep breath and unfolded it. Marissa, you don't know me, but you need to know this. Damien has been lying to you for years. His affair with the redhead isn't his only sin. Offshore accounts, stolen funds, fake contracts. He's not just unfaithful, he's a criminal. I can help you. I know what he's done. If you want the truth, meet me. I'm on your side. EK. My heart pounded, the world spinning around me. The room seemed to tilt, the edges of my vision blurring. Damien, my husband, the man who promised to protect me, to cherish me, the man who whispered love in my ear while shattering my trust. I pressed a hand to my belly, feeling the baby kick, small but strong. This child didn't deserve a father who built his empire on lies. Tears burned my eyes. I'd known about the affair. I'd seen the messages, the late-night calls. But this was something darker. I stumbled to the couch and sank down, the letter trembling in my hands. Financial fraud. Offshore accounts. Fake contracts. I thought of the investors he'd smiled at during gala dinners, the charities he'd donated to for the cameras, the way he'd held my hand in public, the perfect husband with the perfect life. Lies. All of it. I felt my chest tighten, my breath catching in my throat. My baby kicked again, a reminder that I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I wiped my tears and forced myself to breathe. I read the letter again. EK. Who was he? Why was he helping me? Then I remembered the man standing beside me at the gala, the one who made Damien's face pale. Ethan Cade, a CEO, a rival, but maybe an ally. I reached for my phone, my hand still shaking. My reflection stared back at me in the screen. Eyes swollen, lips trembling, but something else too. Strength. I'd given Damien the benefit of the doubt for too long. I couldn't let him ruin our lives anymore. I picked up the letter and folded it carefully, tucking it back into my purse. The baby shifted again, and I pressed my palm to my belly. I'm not giving up, I whispered. Not for you. Not for us. Damien thought he had all the power, but he'd never counted on me finding my own. Ethan's office felt like a fortress. Glass walls, polished wood, and an air of silent authority. I'd never imagined myself here, sitting across from him, my hands folded over my swollen belly. He watched me with a measured gaze, his fingers drumming lightly on the desk. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice low. I met his eyes, wary but determined. You said you could help me, I said. Why? His sigh was slow, as if he'd rehearsed it 100 times. Because Damien hurt my family too. I frowned. How? He leaned back, his jaw tightening. My sister Layla ran a small marketing firm. Damien promised her a partnership, then blindsided her with a hostile takeover. She lost everything. The room seemed to shrink around me. And he hesitated, his voice catching. She took her own life 6 months later. A chill crawled up my spine. I'm so sorry, I whispered, my voice trembling. He shook his head. Don't be. Be angry. Be ready to fight. Damien ruins lives and walks away without a scratch. His eyes darkened, a storm behind them. I wanted to crush him in court, Ethan continued. But every time I tried, he slipped through. When I saw you at the gala, pregnant, alone, I knew he hadn't changed. My throat felt tight. He hasn't. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt fragile but alive. Ethan leaned forward. Marissa, he said softly, I'm not asking you to trust me, but I can help you. I know his financials, inside and out. I know where the bodies are buried. I gripped the edge of the desk. Why me? Why now? He met my gaze without blinking. Because he hurt you, and because you're stronger than you think. I can see it. A warmth spread through my chest, a flicker of hope I hadn't felt in months. You're not alone, he said. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. He'll come after me, I whispered. Ethan's jaw hardened. Then let him try. For the first time since I'd found that letter, I felt like I wasn't drowning. I straightened my back, determination filling every corner of me. Okay, I said. Let's do this. His smile was small, but it felt like a lifeline. Let's take him down, he agreed. And in that moment, I knew. Damien Blackwell had no idea what was coming for him. The gala shimmered with laughter and bright lights, but all I could feel was the tension coiling in my chest. Ethan stood beside me, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. Tonight's the night, he murmured. I nodded, my hands trembling. The orchestra played a soft waltz, but the music sounded like a funeral march. I scanned the room, finding Damien across the floor. He was the center of attention as always, holding Celine's hand with that trademark smirk on his face. Ethan leaned closer. Ready? I swallowed hard. Do it. Ethan moved through the crowd with calm purpose, a quiet predator. He reached Damien just as the song ended. Damien, Ethan said, his voice even but cold. I thought you'd want to know who's been selling your secrets. Damien's smile froze. What the hell are you talking about? Ethan's gaze flicked to Celine. Your mistress. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Celine's face paled, her hand dropping from Damien's arm. That's a lie. She spat, but her voice trembled. Ethan pulled a phone from his pocket. Emails, texts, financial transactions, he said, his tone almost casual. Months of evidence. Damien's face turned ashen, his jaw tight. Is this true? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Celine's lips trembled. Damien, answer me, he snapped. Her eyes darted around, seeking an exit that didn't exist. I needed the money, she whispered. A hush fell. Damien's hand dropped to his side, his expression shattered. All this time, he muttered, his voice ragged. You were the one betraying me. Celine's mask cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face, but no one reached for her. You think I didn't know? She hissed. You never loved me. I was just a pawn, just like everyone else. Damien's eyes were dead. Get out, he said. Now. She tried to grab his hand, but he jerked away. Please, get out, he roared. The crowd parted as she fled, her sobs echoing through the ballroom. Ethan's eyes met mine across the room, a silent victory passing between us. Damien stood frozen, his empire crumbling around him, and for the first time, I saw him not as the man who'd destroyed my trust, but as a man undone by his own games. I slammed the door shut behind me, the echo of my own anger rattling through the empty halls. The living room was spotless, staged like the perfect home. I'd always wanted to show off, but it felt like a graveyard now, each polished surface reflecting a lie. "Marissa," I called, my voice sharp. Silence answered me. I stormed through the rooms, my shoes pounding on the hardwood. The bedroom, our bedroom, was empty. Her clothes gone, her scent already fading. Only the pale imprint of her jewelry box remained on the dresser, a ghost of what once was. I tore open the closet, expecting to find her suitcases stacked neatly in the corner. But they were gone too, the space as hollow as my chest felt. "Marissa." I shouted again, but there was no one to hear me. My heart slammed against my ribs as I stumbled back into the living room. A single piece of paper lay on the coffee table, stark against the glass. I snatched it up, my eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. "Damien, your lies are your own." Marissa tremor shot through me, rattling every bone. I crumpled the note in my fist, but no amount of pressure could erase the words. The walls felt closer than they ever had. Every photograph, our wedding, our travels, those fake smiles, watched me with dead eyes. How had it come to this? I sank onto the couch, the leather cold beneath me. My head fell into my hands, the world a blur of memories I didn't want to relive. Every lie, every manipulation, every calculated smile, it had all led me here. Alone. She'd left me. And worse, she'd left with the knowledge of who I really was. I felt my pulse spike. What did she know? Who had told her? Images of Ethan's cold eyes flashed in my mind. He'd been there at the gala, standing by her side, whispering in her ear, protecting her. I should have seen it. I shot up from the couch, pacing like a caged animal. My empire was crumbling, first Celine, now Marissa. I felt the walls tilt, my breath coming in ragged gasps. She'd said I was the liar, but what had she lied about? Had she been plotting this the whole time? Had Ethan gotten to her? The paranoia settled deep in my bones. Every shadow in the house felt like a threat. I stared at the note in my trembling hand. "Your lies are your own." The words blurred as the weight of them pressed on my chest. I was alone, and I'd done this to myself. The headlines hit me like a tidal wave, each one more brutal than the last. Blackwell Industries under investigation. Ethan Cade exposes Blackwell's fraud. Investors withdraw. Amid scandal. I stared at the screen, my eyes burning. Each word felt like a punch to the gut. The empire I'd built, my name, my legacy, crumbling like ash in the wind. I tried to call my CFO, voicemail, my lawyer. Silence. Even Celine's number rang out before dropping dead. I slammed my laptop shut, the sound echoing in the empty office. This was supposed to be my world, my rules. I had built every inch of it from scratch. And now every board member who'd once toasted me was gone, jumping ship faster than rats from a sinking boat. I gripped the edge of my desk, the wood groaning under my weight. How had I let it come to this? I closed my eyes, images flashing through my mind. Marissa's calm eyes, Ethan's unwavering stare, the way they'd both looked at me, not as the king I thought I was, but as a man whose time had run out. I remembered the documents Ethan had handed me on that balcony, pages and pages of evidence I'd thought buried forever. Every shell company, every fake invoice, every dirty deal. He had it all. And now, so did the world. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a news alert. I didn't have to read it to know it was another nail in my coffin. I sank into my chair, the weight of my own choices pressing me down like an anchor. I'd spent so long building this empire, brick by ruthless brick. I'd sacrificed everything, friends, love, even my own morality, to stay on top. And now, as the world watched, it was all falling apart. I looked around my office, the polished wood and glass now feeling like a mausoleum. The photographs on the wall, me shaking hands with politicians, holding awards, smiling beside Celine, mocked me. I'd traded everything for this, and I'd lost. The sound of my own breathing filled the silence, harsh and uneven. In the distance, I could hear the echo of a voice, Marissa's voice, telling me I'd brought this on myself. Your lies are your own. The words haunted me, ringing louder than the headlines. I'd thought I was untouchable, but the truth was, I'd been standing on quicksand all along, and now there was no one left to pull me out. I watched from across the park as Marissa's silhouette emerged in the afternoon light, her hair catching the sun like a crown. She looked different, older, stronger, like she'd shed every chain I'd ever wrapped around her. Her hand rested on her belly, fingers splayed protectively over the life I'd abandoned. Ethan walked beside her, his hand on the small of her back, guiding her like a promise. She laughed at something he said, a sound that made my chest ache. I'd forgotten how her laughter felt, how it used to light up the darkest corners of my life. They paused by a bench under a cherry tree. Ethan reached into the stroller I hadn't noticed before and lifted a small bag, handing it to her. She took it with a smile I'd never seen her wear with me. My heart twisted. I wanted to call out to her, to bridge the chasm I'd created, but my throat closed around the words. I was the man who'd lied, the man who'd chosen power over love, the man who'd let secrets corrode every promise. She turned slightly, and for a moment our eyes met. The world stilled. Her gaze was calm, no anger, no pity, just the quiet strength of someone who'd finally found her own power. I stepped forward, but Ethan's hand fell on her shoulder, steady and sure. She turned her head to him, her smile blooming like spring. I froze, the weight of every betrayal, every manipulation, every lie crashing down on me. I wanted to scream, to tell her I was sorry, that I'd change, that I'd never meant to hurt her, but all I could do was stand there, a ghost in the life I'd destroyed. She turned away, her profile strong and proud. The wind lifted her hair, a silent goodbye. Ethan leaned in, his lips brushing her temple. She laughed again, the sound fading as they walked away. Together, I stood there, rooted to the ground, watching the woman I'd once thought would always be mine. I wanted to run after her, to beg for forgiveness, but I knew it was too late. Because the truth was, I'd never deserved her. I'd made my choices and she'd made hers. As the cherry blossoms fell around me, I felt the weight of every secret, every lie. The legacy I'd built on power and betrayal lay in ruins at my feet. She'd found a new life, and I'd been left with the ashes of my own. The last look she'd given me was not of hate or anger, but of a woman who'd finally freed herself from a man who couldn't love her enough to let her breathe. I watched until they disappeared around the bend, their laughter drifting back like a memory of a life I'd never get to live. And in that moment, I knew. No empire, no fortune, no cunning plan could ever bring her back to me. The last look was all I had left, and it was enough to burn forever.